Thanks for listening to Games by Design, our online game design development journal where we record and share the stuff that we learn while we play games and we make games. I'm Zach, and I'm joined today by Nick and Noah. And we're all sick today, so we sound a little bit funny, and that is why. And I think that we'll be leaning into that a little bit. Hello. So lately I've been playing 80 Days, which you're looking at on the screen right now. And it's a 2014 game. You're looking at Earth? That's part of the game.
All right.
It happens on Earth. It's a 2014 game made by Inkle. It's a relatively small studio and everything, of course. Puts you in the role of Passport 2, the manservant to Phileas Fogg. This is from the Jules Verne novel, of course, Around the World in 80 Days. And for those of you who haven't read the book, I haven't read the book, but I've seen like 50 million adaptations, like movies and stuff like that, and including the Jackie Chan one.
He in this game?
The story is... No, he's not, actually.
I'm boycotting.
But so the story is you're the manservant to Phileas Fogg, who has made a bet that he can circumnavigate the globe in 80 days or less. It's based on the novel, but it's got like a steampunk-like interpretation. This game does. And you make your way around the world by making a number of choices in each location. You know, stuff to buy, like what you're looking at right now, and like which direction to take, and you know, just like different dialogue choices and stuff like that. It's really cool. I don't know if you guys have played it yet.
Not yet. No, it's on my
I
list.
have not, but I like the whale in your inventory there.
Do I have a whale in my inventory?
The evening jacket. It took me like 30 seconds to figure out it wasn't a whale.
It's my pocket whale. You never know when you're gonna need a pocket whale. So the game is all delivered through text, right? And they've got like these visuals and stuff, but like, you know, and you'll see like but mostly it's text, right? I wanted to start by just reading this little estimate that's from the developer of the game, and it says, on each complete trip around the world in this game, or each run of the game, players will see approximately 2% of the game's 750,000 words of textual content. Jeez. Yeah, I know, which is insane, right? At least for like something so small. Like there's bigger games and stuff like that, but like that, you know,
yeah,
it's small. And so I believe they were able to do so much because I think one of them actually said writing is cheap in an interview one time. You know, it's just text on screen. Voice acting, on the other hand, adds more time, money, work, and stuff like that. So all of this is kind of leading up to say I wanted to talk about like voiced versus unvoiced writing a little bit, or acting in games, like, well, dialogue. I mean, like whether it's got voice acting, whether it doesn't, or whether it's got like a little bit, or just like the squeaky Animal Crossing thing or whatever. And the reason I want to do that is that we're working on our next game project right now, or we're in the conceptual phases of it, and we have the option of, I think, doing either recruiting some actors to voice out the whole thing, or limit ourselves exclusively to text. First of all, to like kind of to talk about a real world example that we take a lot of inspiration from, I'd like to talk about the Elder Scrolls, because you got that's an RPG series, and we're trying to make like an RPG type tiny little game that this time around that made, and the Elder Scrolls jumped from Morrowind to Oblivion. And in Morrowind you had like, they would say like their characters would say something when you'd start talking to them, but it wouldn't like voice all of the dialogue that they had. It was mostly like text. But Oblivion's completely different. Like every single line of dialogue is voiced. And then of course Skyrim did the same thing in all the Fallout games. I think even in Fallout 4 you even have a voiced protagonist, which is new.
Yeah, everyone loved that.
Yeah, I did not. So I'm pretty sure this is true for all of us, but I'm pretty sure all three of us were playing up Morrowind before we played Oblivion. No, I'm not as sure with you, because you were...
I was young. I was
younger.
A wee lad.
Yeah, but I had the impression that you played these games and that you started with Morrowind as well.
I did, yeah.
Okay, that's right. That's what I thought. And I already kind of mentioned what the difference there is in terms of the voicing and stuff. You got Morrowind, you got like a line at the beginning.
Yep.
Outlander. They just like have these like one-line voice things or whatever.
Yeah.
Or like these combat barks or whatever they'll do.
You, Enwa.
Yeah. Basically, it's just slurs.
It just
that out.
Bleep it out.
Those dark elf slurs.
Yeah, that's most of the dialogue, voice dialogue is just dark elf slurs. Actually,
Yeah,
that's
it really is.
I'd be okay
So
if we put those in our game. Just slurs, dark elf
Just
slurs. Voice slurs. Everything else is just text.
3 stars. Needed more racial slurs.
Need more. Not enough.
Not enough racial slurs. And so I wanted to ask you guys, since we've all played both of those games a fair amount, I wanted to ask you guys how you felt that changed the game experience moving from Morrowind to Oblivion, or you could compare it to Skyrim as well, you know, because Skyrim and Oblivion both have the same kind of approach there. Or if you played the Fallout games, then, you know, you can talk about that. But yeah, so just want to kind of like get your experience moving from, the one to the other in terms of approach. So Nick, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with you and hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. I was a bit younger when I played Morrowind originally, so it'd be interesting to revisit now. I haven't played it in a long time, but I do recall that I was overwhelmed by the amount of text that was in that game. I think that it certainly has more than Skyrim or Oblivion, but it also presents its text in like enormous chunks, right? You ask a character about something and they'll give you 4 paragraphs instead of like the Morrowind or the Oblivion or Skyrim approach of like giving you a line of dialogue and going to the next line of dialogue. And so really what it felt like, you're almost like skimming these Wikipedia entries of conversation, which I think is really cool in its own way. I love the hyperlink system that Morrowind has, in case you're not familiar with it. Listener, people, plebs, like little words would highlight blue. The guys be like, I went to the store the other day at John's house, and you'd be like, store? John's house? Like both of those words would be highlighted, so you could click those and take you to another section of conversation. I thought that was really cool. But I do remember it being a lot, and I know that I consider Skyrim to be more approachable in some ways. Actually, I consider Skyrim to be more approachable in almost every way. But there's other examples that I'm sure we'll get to where I vastly prefer the text approach. And I think a lot of it has more to do with the way the text is presented than just it being text. And I think that Morrowind always overwhelmed me a little bit, actually.
Okay,
a lot of reading in that game.
Yeah, well, we were just looking at some reading here on the screen. I'm wondering what you would think. Do you find like the delivery system for text here in this game to be like initially overwhelming, you think?
I'm gonna be honest, I haven't actually been looking at the screen, but I'll start now.
Okay. Let me know when you get that.
My microphone's pointed out the window, so I look out the window when I talk, and I look at the screen when I'm not talking. But I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, just take a look while you're watching here.
No, I have a thought though. I do have a thought.
Let's hear it.
It's that this game is entirely text, and so that's kind of to be expected, I think, or at least it's primarily text. Whereas for Morrowind, at least it's my experience as a younger boy playing that, I was just interested in getting whatever information I needed to go on to the next interesting thing, to know on to the next fight. That was mostly what I was interested in back in then. And I'm sure it'd be a different experience now because my priorities have shifted with gaming, and so I'd probably enjoy the text a lot more. But that's kind of how I feel about all that.
And just to kind of sum that up, it was like just the sheer amount of text and lore and everything that was delivered at once. You kind of mentioned it. It's like a Wikipedia kind of article thing.
Yeah.
That was what was overwhelming to you about it. It was just so much all at once.
Yeah, that was really what it was. Like with 3 button clicks, I could have like 10 pages of stuff to read, right? Like scroll bars of like, tell me about, the mine. And it'd be like, oh, the mine was founded in this place and there's all this crazy stuff about it. Whereas in Skyrim, you've got like a couple dialogue options and they'll say like 3 lines about something. They're a little more attentive to the pace of conversation in that game. And so like you're never in a conversation for more than a few minutes in Skyrim.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And it's usually just like a few lines at a time.
Really, yeah.
Well, I think something else about Skyrim and Oblivion too. Well, not sure, but something else about Skyrim at least is that it's kind of more character driven, I suppose you might say, which is really funny because I don't really think that Skyrim has very strong characterization most of the time. but in Morrowind, you're right. Like it is kind of just like it's just copy paste like lore, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but a lot of the time. There's some exceptions obviously because there's like characters and quests and stuff like that. And there's some great characters in Morrowind. But like when you get information in Skyrim, it usually comes, I'm gonna say voice. Like in that character's voice, but what I mean is like it seems like it's filtered through that character's like character, like it's like, yeah. Oh yeah, that guy, I hate that guy, he's such a jerk, or whatever. So that I think that might be part of what smooths it out for me a little bit too as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious, we'll get to you in a second here, Noah. Nick, one of your favorite games is Outer Wilds, and that game is all about lore and knowledge and information delivery.
Yeah.
And it's all done, there's no voice acting or anything like that. And you're not actually having conversations with people most of the time.
Yep.
There are some people that you can talk to, but I'm curious about how, because you were talking about the pace of conversation, right? Being like, it was Skyrim's more mindful of that. So this isn't about conversation. I'm wondering how you find the lore and knowledge delivery in Outer Wilds, even though it's not conversational most of the time.
Yeah. I love it. I freaking love that game. I lapped up every bit of anything that was in it. And I think a lot of it just comes down to the amount of text that is on screen at a time. Like Outer Wilds does this thing where it's got when you're reading a mural, it's a bunch of, without getting into the nitty gritty of it, like this alien language that you're deciphering is like in these nodes, and they kind of spin off of each other, and so you go from one node to the next node, and so instead of having like a Rosetta Stone of just text that top to bottom, where you're just reading a massive paragraph, in the beginning was God and God was, like you're not reading through a passage of the Bible. You're just reading usually about 3 lines of text at a time. Outer Wilds does have the benefit of most of those texts being in the form of conversations. Most of those are back and forths between old aliens. So there is kind of that. It is presented through a character lens. You don't know who these characters are as much, but I think really it's just about, my biggest hang up with Morrowind is just digestibility of text. And like when I see 3 paragraphs on screen, I'm like, okay, and I just skim. I just start skimming.
Yeah, and I think that we talked about this a little bit during our Sunless Sea episode a while back, actually. I think we talked about why I was skipping so much of I was doing what you do when you play Morrowind as a kid, like I was just getting the relevant information and I was just moving on. I do that this is funny, I do that in Crusader Kings 3, which I love, of course. I skip stuff all the time, and I don't really want to do that. I want to read everything because that's where like the vibes and the story and the characterization and all that kind of stuff happens, but I end up skipping through that, and that was true especially in Sunless Sea because I think it was Noah mentioned that there's just like a lot on screen at a time, a lot of text. So it seems like quantity is really important then, is what I'm kind of getting from you.
I think so.
I think I would agree, yeah. Okay, Noah, let's move to you. We've kind of talked about a lot of different things, but if you want to talk about Morrowind versus the Oblivion/Skyrim thing, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
Unless you've had any other more relevant thoughts since then.
A couple. First and foremost, I think that it was funny, Nick, you mentioned the Bible. For context sake, for this game, you said that it has 750,000 words of textual content. The King James Bible is about 780,000 words. So this script for this game is just a bit shorter than the entire King James Bible, which is...
Wow, are you serious?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, I just looked that up. I thought that was kind of neat. But
that's insane.
So I actually have been playing through Morrowind recently. I stopped, but okay. I was playing through it, and I was playing through Fallout New Vegas as well. I also stopped. That happens a lot. I found that my solution to Morrowind's, and I don't think this is a good solution, but I think it was what I ended up resorting to. Because there were walls of text, what I would often do is I would click every single hyperlink as fast as possible. Like when I just was like, I don't want to hear this. I would click it all, and then if there was pertinent information that related to a quest or some form of or something that was important, it would get added to my journal, and that is what I would read through. Because it would say, you read all this information and give you like 3 paragraphs about what's his butt. But then when you look in your journal, it's like, so-and-so is at this place in Balmora. And you're like, okay, that's really all I needed to know. I didn't need to know anything else. And I think that's one of the things that, like, I think I agree with Nick. Like, it's not so much that it is a ton of information, although it is overwhelming. I think it's how it's presented that really, really makes it just hard to sit through. That said, I don't really care for the way that Oblivion and Skyrim do it. I think maybe that's largely in part due to I don't think that the writing is particularly strong, or the voice acting is particularly engaging enough for me to like want to listen to these people talk. When I play Dark Souls or Elden Ring, for one thing, there's not a lot of people to talk to, so anytime there is, you're like, oh my gosh, a friend, because everyone's trying to kill you. I listen to every word that those guys have to say, and I will hardly ever skip their dialogue just because it's really engaging and well acted a lot of the time, and well written and succinct enough that I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. And I often I kind of wish there was a way to bridge the gap between the the Skyrim or Oblivion approach of drip feeding information to you through dialogue versus the Morrowind approach where there's no voice acting other than a greeting of sorts, and then you have this hyperlink system. If there was some way to bridge that, whether through it's just clever UI design or something else, I feel like that would, to me, be sort of like the perfect medium, especially in an MMO or in an RPG. If it's a narrative game, that's a bit different. But I feel like, we talk a lot about making RPGs, and in these instances, these are RPGs where information is kind of like the point of the game. It's learning about things and making decisions based off of the things that you learn, and so you're constantly inundated with information because that's just we're in these lore-rich worlds that are telling you all about the Daedra and how Morrowind was formed. It's like not all of this is important, but I do like the idea of having like a reference system. I think that's such a clever way to do it. What they did in Morrowind with hyperlinks, I don't think they did it the best, but they did do it, and that's cool.
So you think that, I'm curious, would you say that your problem then is the same one that Nick has? It's just so much all at once. Is that the main
Yeah, so much, and it's like what you were saying. I think it struggles because there's no characterization in the. I mean, there is to some degree, like what you're saying, but there's not very much characterization in the text. So I'm not inclined to read it anyway. Even if it was important, because it's just the same wiki article that everyone else says when you ask them about Balmora, that I don't really care about reading about Balmora. And so that's sort of like that's just a question of how much time are the devs willing to put into writing? How much time are you willing to put into writing different responses for every single character for the hundreds of characters that you have in your game or whatever? But I think that ultimately when it is down to it, it's just that it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. But I think that Oblivion is slow, so it's like there's got to be a happy medium.
So there's got to be, it sounds like, or something. Some things that we like then is this characterization kind of a thing. Like you want the dialogue to feel like it's coming from a person, and it's not just like a copy pasted Wikipedia article lore dump.
Right.
Which is something that Morrowind struggles with, and I'm pretty sure Daggerfall and the other ones do too. There's a lot of games that do that.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like at some point you should just let you check a notebook that has this information, instead of having it delivered through people, because it doesn't feel like it's coming from people. Like I wonder, that might be an interesting kind of a thing. You might have like a lore delivery system that's like, universal stuff, and then you just kind of reserve all the conversations you have with people to be character driven conversations with those people.
Yeah.
The other thing you said is just like quantity and amount. Like it's so much to get. Well, and relevance too, I think, is part of it. It sounds like you were saying, Noah, like with Dark Souls and Elden Ring and everything, like you listen to every word because you feel like it's to the point, and it's relevant, and you don't feel like you're wasting your time when you do pay attention to what they're saying. Whereas with a game like Morrowind, where it's like, here's all this stuff that you could get from anyone, like it's it's not all stuff that you need to act on, then that doesn't work quite as well.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think this is limited to just like writing versus voice. Like I don't think that that's the only thing, because I've played plenty of games that have audio logs that I am so bored by and do not care about. And so like I think it's just a matter of writing is really what it is more than anything. I think Morrowind gives you more information. Skyrim keeps things digestible. Both have their strengths, both have their weaknesses. Something like, but I don't think it's like a voiced versus unvoiced kind of problem that we're coming into in this particular one. I think you can certainly sift through information faster if it's written, which is why I feel like journals and logbooks are good for that sort of thing. But I don't know if it's necessarily a voiced versus unvoiced thing.
So it may not be that it's a matter of voice acting versus no voice acting. It might be just like in terms of like, is the writing tight enough to work? That makes a lot of sense.
I was you're talking about like wikis and Morrowind's sort of hyperlink system, and that got me thinking about this is related. It's a little bit of a step to the side, but I think it's worth mentioning. I actually really love when a game has an in-game like wiki system, and I often I really love when a game will tell you information through dialogue, and then that information is added to your journal of sorts. I like that about Morrowind, because it's a great way to reference it. I don't think that Morrowind has a very good journal layout, because someone said something to you 10 days ago and you have to just like scroll back and hope that you can find it. But I've been playing through the Moria game, the Return to Moria, which was came out like last year, or was it? I think, I don't remember. But it has a very simple in-game wiki where you'll discover something, you'll discover an enemy, you discover whatever, and then it updates in your journal, and you're able to open up your journal and say, oh, okay, what's this location? You scroll down to that location in the locations tab, and then it tells you about that location. This is not groundbreaking. Lots of games have done this, but it's actually something that I think that works really well and would make a game like Morrowind a little more digestible if all of this information was referenceable, as opposed to every single time you spoke to someone you had to like see the same giant spiel and stuff. And this isn't really a solution to dialogue. It's just something that I think that sometimes could work in tandem with how information is delivered to the player, is if there's some way for the player to reference the information after it's been delivered to them. Obviously, there's some very like obvious ways of doing this with a quest. You talk to someone and they say, oh, there's a guy down in the sewers, and then at the top of the screen it says guy down in the sewers, and then you open up your guy down in the sewers tab in your side quest, and it's like there's a guy in the sewers. But there's something about like having that like immediately referenceable information that I enjoy as a player, because I like reading about, what has just happened in a sort of succinct way. I don't really know. This isn't like a solution to anything. It's just something that I think is worth considering as we talk about how we want to deliver information to the player.
So like have it like kind of filtered down and made into a digestible, referenceable, easy to find, easy to check kind of a logbook or anything,
Yeah.
A lot of these games we've been talking about, they do that. Outer Wilds does that.
Oh yeah.
It
It's
has
essential
that
for that game.
That's an interesting point. No, it's a good feature that we might want to think about including in our next one if we have a lot of different stuff that the player's going to have to end up remembering or referring back to.
And I don't think that's necessary for every game, right? You don't need it in Animal Crossing. You don't need to write down, you don't need a logbook of like what your friends are doing every day. The bunny went fishing on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Saw her there. Like, it just doesn't matter. The text serves it. The dialogue in that game is much more character than it is like informational. That word was really hard for me to say for some reason.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's because it's a different kind of game. Like, it's not like you have to like solve these puzzles or accomplish these quests that require you to like remember the routines and habits and personality and dark secrets of the other animals on the island in an RPG kind of thing where. Man, ever since I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago, like RPG is such a vague term to me now that it's like, what does that mean? But in a game where there's a lot of information, there's games that warrant that, I guess is what I'm saying. Games that warrant that, tracking all that information, that's the kind of game you want to have that kind of tool in. Something that, this is not at all what I planned on talking about today, but something that I feel like should be in more of these games is, and maybe we should try experimenting with this just because like, I just want to see it more, is just like a manual input journal option. I end up taking notes outside of a game a lot of the time, on real paper on my desk or whatever, and then trying to like keep it from overwhelming my desk and my space or whatever. When I'm playing like Stardew Valley with you guys every once in a while, or like, Morrowind, I feel like it's kind of essential because like there's a lot of like, I got to remember which quests I'm working on and whatever, because it doesn't track it in the same way as the modern ones do. And in Crusader Kings too, I wish I had this too. Like, I just wish that there was an in-game journal that like wasn't just recording automated game information, but was also like gave you the option to write your own text in there and notes to yourself for the future. Or maybe just you could even use it as like a role-playing thing. You like talk about your character's thoughts and feelings and stuff as you go.
I remember playing a Minecraft save once all by myself where I discovered that a book and quill existed in Minecraft, which is so funny because it's literally just a text document in Minecraft. There's nothing like crazy about that mechanic. Yeah. But I was like, this is great. And I was playing a solo world and I was like, I'll just journal about what I do every day. And that was like the driving form of engagement of that playthrough, was that I could journal, which is so funny because I could have written anything on a piece of paper. But I do agree. I think it's really weird that games don't give you opportunities to write notes inside the game.
Yeah, it's not a difficult mechanic to include. And I remember you reminded me, well, that's what I did so much of the time. We had that Minecraft server for like 4 years that it was active and everything. I wrote so many books in it, and a lot of other people wrote a lot of books in it. And like that was part of the game. That was part of the role-playing experience, was like writing and reading other people's books that we had written in the game. It's so simple and it's so straightforward, but it allows the player, I think, to like capture their experience with the game in the game. It's a cool mechanic, and it will help you keep track of what you want to do in the future too.
Yeah. And imagine you're playing a game, some game with a lot of things to journal about, and you journal it. I don't know, maybe there's a fun mechanic where you can like put stickers in your journal or make doodles.
Oh yeah.
Or like choose from a bunch of pictures to put in there, right? You could take pictures, maybe there's a photography kind of element to the game, and so you're like, I don't know, kind of like we talked about in the Tome episode, there's just something really fun about personalization. But then imagine that at the end of the game, it's like, hey, you finished the game, great. Also, here's a PDF of your journal in case you ever want to just like look back on the fun times from playing this game. Like, wouldn't that just be such a fun thing to have? You're just like you take it with you out of the game almost, and like that's really cool.
It's really funny you should say that. That made me think of something else that happened on our recent I think one of our Skyrim videos, one of our shorter ones, we were talking about Skyrim. We had a comment on that video that someone said, and this really got me thinking, but they were talking about how they took a screenshot when they were done playing Skyrim. Like they got to the end of their playthrough, they like settled down, they got their home, they got married, whatever, and then they like sat down at their, I don't remember where they did it, sat down on their balcony or something like that. They just took a screenshot of their character sitting at their house at the end of all their adventures, and then they kept that screenshot. I don't remember if they said they put it as like a wallpaper on their computer or something like that, but they said they didn't play the game after that, but that was the, like that shot, that picture, like was their their reminder or memento of that journey that they had taken. And that really kind of got me thinking about that. And this idea that you have of a journal that records things, that allows you to record things along the way, and that you can have at the end as like as a memory of your journey. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting to me too. That could be a lot of fun to experiment with. You could actually blend it with, it records things automatically in a gameplay kind of a sense, but it also perhaps allows you to add custom stuff as well. That's cool. That's a fun idea.
It could record like the things that you do, and you could record commentary on, be like, so and so, whatever day, fought this many things, killed this person, had a cup of coffee. You're like, the coffee was good. Drawing of the happy coffee mug.
Yeah, and it'd be cool if you could blend it with like visual stuff too. Like you could have, depending on the type of game, if it's a game where, you have a camera or a phone or whatever, you could take a picture and that would just automatically get added to that day that you took that picture.
I love the idea of stickers.
Of stickers?
Yeah, you go around, you like collect stickers and like, you interact with things and then you collect stickers. Like I've been playing Final Fantasy VII and like it's got like a collecting kind of like Gwent game that you do. And I was like, what if these are just stickers and then you just put them on things?
I remember playing Little Big Planet, and you just unlock stickers, and just you could put them on anything in that game, right? You'd be running through a level, and a character would walk up to you and say hello, and you could just put a sticker right on their face, right? That was just the beauty of that game. But if you had a way to like customize, record what your journey, and like you got like stamps or something, and you can put different stamps in your notebook. I got a new stamp. Like oh boy, like people love that, especially since it's something you can like use.
You can unlock like sketches. Yeah. Like little sketches that you can like put in wherever. That's such a fun idea.
I especially really like your idea of like having it exportable at the end.
That's really cool. Yeah.
That way, because like a lot of the time in these games, Skyrim and all these other like kind of open-ended, open character, I guess you might call it, like where it's like, you determine what you do and how it goes and everything. Like a lot of the time the journey happens in your head and there's no real way to remember or recall, or like you don't take anything with you, and a lot of the game was in your head, like, so it's not like it even recognizes it all in the game. But if you have that book, quote unquote, or journal or whatever that you export at the end and have and that could refer back to, you could revisit your journey by just reading through it or skimming through it or looking through the pictures or whatever and be like, oh yeah, I remember when it's like when you look at a photo album in real life or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is such a cool experience. Like, it's like, oh, I remember that. Like you look at your pictures on Facebook or whatever. It's like, I remember when I did that with so-and-so. That was a good time.
And having them outside of the game is nice too, because a lot of games let you review your screenshots once you boot it up and stuff. But to be able to like take that out of that and just have it on your phone or your computer would be really nice.
So many people would post
you could like share it online too.
Yeah.
And like that would be cool. Like a lot of people would like want to share and read each other's stories,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw, there was somebody who like made a like, oh hang on, sorry, carry on talking. I'll see if I can't find it. I'm gonna look it up.
Okay.
Let me look it up.
I'm gonna just, while Nick is doing that, I'm just gonna quickly jump back to the topic of voice dialogue and just and offer my thought. I honestly think I prefer the Morrowind approach to voice dialogue more than I like the Skyrim and Oblivion and every other subsequent Elder Scrolls game. Unless your voice acting is amazing and your writing is amazing. I think I prefer the Morrowind version. I think I like, going up to a character and he says, you, Enwa, and then he tells me, whatever, and it's not voiced for the rest of it. But I think I prefer that. Not just to kind of go back to what we were talking about at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that has a lot of advantages to it. I think that it's more evocative, like it's more like kind of like stimulates your imagination a little bit more instead of like depending on the acting to kind of, it fill in that blanks. Like your mind can do it. And I think you might be right in what you said, where it's like it kind of just depends on the quality of the writing and the acting and everything.
Yeah.
And maybe how often you hear it too.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think that, I don't know, it's fun. Having some voice makes it feel alive. It's not like super like dry without it. So that helps a bit, but if it's all voiced, then I think you're right. It starts running into other problems, especially like Oblivion ran into a whole bunch of problems with it, and it got weird, really fast, and that was partly just Oblivion, and then Skyrim it doesn't have great writing or acting. I don't know. Anyway, every episode we're going to talk about how much we hate Skyrim, even though we play it all the time.
Yep.
It's not all hated. It's actually really it's Skyrim.
It's Skyrim.
Yeah.
It's Skyrim. Is it good or bad? I don't know. It's Skyrim.
I don't know.
Did you find your thing?
Yeah, well, my as soon as I started looking it up, my computer started struggling to do more than one thing at once. But the gist is that somebody made a full color, and I'll try to get a link to you, Zach, so you can put this in the video description if it's not too much trouble. Somebody made like an illustrated Elden Ring diary as they played through.
Oh, really?
You might have seen this. It's
saw
gorgeous, right? And I thought this was the coolest thing of like recording their journey, and when they would meet NPCs, they'd draw them and they'd write notes about them. It's just dope as heck. But like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a way in game to try to accomplish some of that same thing? So it's just kind of circling back to that. But yeah, that's the end of that thought. Boop.
So like you meet a character in this game or whatever, and then when you meet them the first time, automatically like a sketch or a picture will appear in your journal of that person, and maybe a little note say, "I met this person today" or whatever. And
or maybe
this
is a stupid idea. Maybe you add the ability to get that sketch, and so you can now put them wherever you want in your journal. And so like. And so, you could put things in the wrong places. I met a frog today, and you got a picture of a tree. Like just because I don't know. I think people would get a kick out of that.
It'd be kind of fun to like capture, like say you're a sketch artist in this game or whatever, right? Like it'd be kind of fun to like capture objects or scenes and then apply them whenever you wanted. Just like stick them in there in the margins or on the page or whatever. That'd be kind of fun.
You make art out of it. You have acquired rock sketch. You have acquired Dumbo the elephant. Now you can put Dumbo the elephant anywhere you want.
Next to a rock.
Next to your rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can put text all over it too, because that's fun. Yeah. What a fun idea. Well, we're over time today. We had a lot of fun talking about that journal thing. We came in with the intent of talking about voice acting, which we barely touched. But that was still really interesting, and I'm fascinated to see what we can kind of come up with going forward. I think it'd be fun to talk about using some of these ideas in our next project. And in the meantime, I suppose I will see you guys later. We'll chat again soon about making this next game, and thanks for being a part of the podcast.
Sounds good.
Yeah.